Hey y'all, I hope you're well. Welcome to another episode of Healthcare Boulevard. This is a podcast where we shine more light on healthcare, and our goal here is to provide more options to people looking to choose healthcare as a career path, regardless of their background. My name is Senaka Pomo, and I am your host and creator here. I thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your support. Remember, you can tune in wherever you get your podcast. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Healthcare Boulevard, how y'all doing, Vardians? I am back on the mic, and just a quick warning: this is likely going to be my last episode for the year, and I probably won't be back till maybe in January, early February, until I figure everything out. But I appreciate you guys who have been here. I am here with an interview with one of my friends. And I'm excited to get into it. One of the last episodes I did was about financing your education in healthcare, and that's very close to me. And I wanted to sort of show you guys an example of somebody who is doing that, especially past bachelor's degree. You already know my story about how I pay for my undergrad, but I tell you, I did take my loan for PA school, so I want to show y'all a better example of how to do that. So let me stop chatting and invite him. Frank, how you doing, Mr. Monney?
Hey, how's it going today? I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. So yes, it is very true. His last name is Monney. I made a lot of jokes about that when we first met. So he's soon to be Dr. Monney, and just create all the jokes in your head. He's heard it all. But it's been a while. I actually haven't seen Frank. We haven't seen each other for like 2 or 3 years, but we recently reconnected over the weekend. And thank you for, traveling out here. It was very nice seeing you.
It was my pleasure. I missed you, so I was happy to be there.
Oh, good. So let's dive into it. I'm gonna have you introduce yourself, because I can talk on and on. You know me. I'm gonna have you introduce yourself, and we'll get started.
So, hello everybody. My name is Frank Monney. I am originally from Cameroon in West Africa, and I now live in the U.S. in Pennsylvania, and I'm a second-year medical student at Geisinger Commonwealth School of Medicine, and that's in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Okay. So give us, I'm going to sort of divide it into different steps, right? So clearly you're in medical school. That means you already had a bachelor's degree. And this is, even though you do have a master's degree, that's not a step that's required for medical school.
Correct.
So let's take it one step at a time. We're going to do it in 3 steps. What was your undergrad journey, and how did you pay for that? Let's start with the journey first.
Okay.
We'll dive into how you pay for it.
Yeah, 100%. So my journey to undergrad was very similar to yours, I believe. And, for whoever has been listening to the podcast, they should already know this story, but I'm going to go ahead and share anyway. So after high school, I had, dreams of going to like a 4-year college, like most people. I had just moved to the country. After about a year, I finished high school. And I wanted to go to a 4-year university. All of my friends in high school were going straight to like University of Maryland, blah, 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 blah. And I kind of wanted to do the same thing, right? So I applied. I did get into a few schools. And I was actually set on going to Hood College, which is a private school in Baltimore, Maryland. So, my mom and I and like my mom's friend, we drove up there, and, we loved it and everything until we saw the tuition.
As the story goes.
Yeah, I think it was about $50,000 a year, and that was just the tuition. And I had to be on campus because, Baltimore, I lived about an hour and a half away. And, and they didn't offer me really a scholarship. So, my mom and I had a conversation, and we realized that it was out of the window. So to make a long story short, I ended up going to community college, Montgomery College in Rockville, to be precise. And I spent 2 years over there. And after that, Montgomery College had a partnership with a few 4-year universities, right? So the way that it works is that you complete your first 2 years at a community college, And based on the 4-year university that you would like to transfer to, you kind of tailor your classes to that university so that most of your credit can transfer. And if you do that successfully, then you can have a seamless transfer to the 4-year university. So I did 2 years at Montgomery College. I got my associate's degree in life sciences. And then I completed my last 2 years at the University of Maryland in Baltimore County, UMBC represent. And I got my bachelor's from there. So as far as like paying for it, right? That was the second part of your question.
Yeah, go right into it.
So paying for it, like Montgomery College and most community colleges, I think it's more so like a need-based kind of thing where if your family and you kind of fall within a certain like tax bracket or like income level, then you can have, your education pretty much paid for completely. And again, it's community college, so you don't have to board over there. You kind of live at home. So that was my situation. It was completely paid for the first 2 years. And the program that I mentioned before, like the program between Montgomery College and UMBC, actually offered a scholarship to students that maintained a certain GPA and like were able to actually get their associates in 2 years, which is why, as you know, every summer we were there taking classes, making sure that, we got to get out of here in 2 years. You know what I mean? So I was able to complete that. My first 2 years were paid for by, financial aid. And I was able to successfully complete, that transferring kind of initiative, right? So I met the GPA requirement. I forgot what it was. And, after 2 years, I was able to transfer to UMBC. So, I got a scholarship, the transfer scholarship, which I think was about $5,000. UMBC gave me another like academic scholarship based on my grades. And that together covered my tuition. And I was like, all right, bet. So now how are we going to live outside of the house? Because I'm not trying to be at home no more. And I don't drive yet. So I needed something to cover my room and board. So I kind of started looking around and, I was being very inquisitive, just kind of like looking at different things that were offered online and making sure that the websites that I was looking at were legitimate, right? Because there's a lot of false information out there. So you kind of have to do your due diligence in making sure that you kind of assess those websites thoroughly. So I was able to find national and like senatorial and like delegate scholarships, right? Directly through like the Maryland government website, something like that, right? And I was like, this seems a little too good to be true, but I'm going to apply anyway, right? Because it was pretty simple. Exactly. I was like, all they asked for was, your financial aid application, which, I already had, and another essay and like, saying why you deserve, to have the scholarship. So I think I applied. Yeah, exactly. So I applied to, I think, 3 of those, and I ended up getting all 3, right? Okay. And the total award for that was $18,000.
Okay.
Out of the blues, out of nowhere. So, combined with the scholarship that I already gotten from UMBC and the transfer scholarship, that gave me a full ride to the University of Maryland for those last 2 years, and I had a little bit of money left over actually because of, that $18,000. I think I only needed 15 or 16 to cover like my tuition and my room and board and fees and all those things. Right. And I had a little 1,500 every semester that I was flexing on. You know what I mean?
Come on, look at me now.
Right. So I think it was because I think usually when I tell people that I had a full ride to undergrad, tuition and fees and like room and board, people usually assume that it was like a one packet that paid for everything. Right. But I think really getting into those details to really explain how I was able to essentially piece things together to make it fit for the story. So that's kind of how that happened.
And that goes to say, like, sometimes some scholarships like the one transferring straight from MC to UMBC are pretty straightforward. You don't have to, once you meet a certain criteria, you get it. But other things like the 3 scholarships that you added to, you really got to get on there and be like, listen, I want money and I want it now, and I need it and I need it free. Like, come on now. You really got to search it, and the opportunities are out there, especially for undergrad. It's really out there. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
So now onto your master's degree. Let's start with what led you to decide to get a master's degree, because as we know, it's not a requirement for medical school. And then of course, doing the same thing, how did you pay for it?
Okay, yeah, of course. So my getting a master's degree was actually not something that I had planned on. because again, you don't really need that to get into medical school. All you need is a bachelor's, right? But as you know, most people know, and if you don't know, you need to take, the medical college admissions test, which is called the MCAT, before you get into medical school. Now, let me tell y'all, me and the MCAT are not friends, okay? I had to take that test 3 times before I was able to get a good enough score to get into medical school, right? So essentially, soon after I graduated college, I just, and just to preface before I get into that, I feel like the reason why I got a master's degree is because I also didn't have, I don't want to say I didn't necessarily have a mentor, but I didn't also have a plan panned out for what does the application process look like? What do I need to get into medical school? And how do I get myself ready to kind of begin to enter that space, right?
Like seamlessly go from undergrad to medical school, which is a big step, right?
It is a big step. And I think, I, for example, didn't know until my senior year in college that I needed to take the MCAT to get into med school. And, at that point, that already puts me into a gap year because you have to take a while to prepare for it. And the application cycle takes a whole year, which, again, I didn't know, right?
Wait, so the application cycle just for the MCAT?
No, the application cycle to get into medical school takes a whole year. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that's something that I didn't know, right? So going back to your question, so I took the MCAT after I graduated. I didn't do too hot. I took it again a few months later. I didn't do too hot. And I was like, well, something's got to give, right? Because I knew my grades were pretty good. And, I'd done pretty well in community college and at the University of Maryland. But my MCAT wasn't really where I needed it to be, right? And at this point, I'd been working for 2 years. I was making okay money. I was living at home. I wasn't really paying any bills. So I was like, I'm making all this money, but like, I'm not really where I want to be. How can I strengthen my academics, right? So I started looking online into what we call special master's program that are designed specifically to get students ready for medical school, right? So be it your academics that need a boost, you're going to find that in those programs. If you need MCAT preparation, you're going to find that in those programs. And also if you just need structure as to like, what do you need to do to get into medical school? This is what that looks like. You're going to get that guidance from those programs, right? So once I took my second MCAT and I realized that, okay, I'm not doing really well and I've been out of school for 2 years now, I need something else to kind of remind these people that academically I'm about it. You know what I mean? And I was like, the best way for me to do that is to find a program that I can excel at and at the same time that can offer me an MCAT preparation course, which landed me at Geisinger Commonwealth School of Medicine. They have a master's program. And that's how I went to Geisinger to get my master's in biomedical sciences, right? And essentially, really quickly, the gist of the program, you kind of take higher level undergrad classes. So you retake your genetics, biochem, and stuff like that, but then it's more in depth. But then you also take some graduate level courses to kind of really show medical school admission committees that you're about it and you can handle the coursework that and the rigor of medical school, right? And at the end of that program, you do a 6 weeks or like 8 weeks MCAT prep course that is also kind of funded by the school. And, that combined with, the higher level, graduate level work that you just combined is supposedly, how can I say it? Is meant to get you ready to do well on the MCAT and to have a successful medical school application cycle, right? So I did all of that. But to pay for that, I actually had to take loans for the first time in my life. I had to take loans for my master's program. Trust me, I tried to find scholarships for that, okay? I
know you're kind. We are made from the same
army just so I could pay for that, okay? I really tried, but it really didn't make sense to me because the program was only about 9 months and was an expensive program, but because I had to take loans for it, I knew that going there, I had to give it my best, 100%. There was no way I was going to take loans and do a mediocre job at the school. You know what I mean? So I ended up taking loans. And, that whole process was new to me because I had never taken loans, right? So I would go to the financial aid office and be like, what the hell do I do? Who's Sally Mae? How do I do this? You know what I mean?
Like, who's Sally Mae? Like, can I get her coffee? Will that help in this situation?
Right. So that process there was a lot of like, there was a big learning curve when it came to like applying for federal loans and things like that and understanding what that meant once I graduated, right? Because there's always the front end, oh, you can get all this money. but then on the back end, you
Yeah.
have like a grace period after you graduate, and then it's time to pay up, right? So I think that's the story behind my getting a master's degree.
So that was less than a year, right? The
Yeah,
master's
it was
degree.
9 months. Yep.
9 months. Okay. So you got a loan for that. Did you stop paying that right after you were done?
So I started.
I know you have like a 6-month grace period.
Yes, you do have a 6 months grace period, but that's only provided that you don't have a job, right? So I was fortunate enough to actually find a job. So after I graduated from my master's thing, right, I took 6 weeks. So we graduated in May. Then I took like 6 weeks to get ready for the MCAT. Then I took the MCAT in like late July, early August. And thankfully, the week after I took the MCAT, I had a job lined up in Maryland.
Great.
So literally, as soon as I graduated, took my MCAT, started working, all of that within 2 months. And then Sally Mae was at my door asking for her money. All right. So I started making.
I was like, come on, you gotta have my money. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I started making those payments. And I also had to understand, there's like this whole thing where your payment plan can be income based, right? So they can look at, how much money you're making, who are you supporting, who lives in your house. And based off of that, they can decide what they think is fair for you to pay as a monthly payment, right? So that's also another thing that I had to learn. But yeah, I don't want to say unfortunately, because I was blessed to have a job, but I had to start making those payments pretty soon after I graduated.
Right. Now, did you look into federal loans, or was that not the best option for you? Is that why you went with a private loan like Sally Mae?
No, I think I did take federal loans, but the program was really, really expensive at Geisinger. I think the program itself, like without, because I mean, of course, like I didn't work right during, and I think that was another part of the conversation that we're gonna have. But during my master's program, I didn't work at all, so I needed money not only for the tuition, but I also needed money to live and to be able to, like, you know what I mean, have a roof over my head. Yeah. So I think I maxed out on like the federal loans.
Okay.
And then like I had to take a little bit out of like a private loan just to be able, because that program, I mean, it's a great program, I think, in retrospect, but I don't think I would recommend it to anyone else, to be completely honest.
Just because of the cost of it.
Yeah, the cost of it, and then also some of the logistics, some of the things that are, like promised to graduates of the master's program that weren't necessarily like obtained once we graduated, you know what I mean? So I do think that there are better programs out there that could do what the school wanted to do, but like just like do it better and be more transparent about it, which is a big thing.
Right. Okay, so I'm gonna sort of bring the wheels back a little bit. Did you work in undergrad or no?
Undergrad, my sophomore year when I was at the community college, I think my last semester I worked at like a fast food place just because like all my siblings worked and I was like, why can't I work? You know what I mean? So I worked, and so that was cool. And that's like
first world problem. Like, why are you working? I mean, I'm peer pressure,
and you know what? Actually, when I was younger, right? The story that my mom tells me is that because I started school when I was 2 years old, which I guess is early.
Yeah.
So I guess the story that my mom told me is that when I was younger, all of my siblings would leave the house and go to school, and I was like, why can't I go to school?
Excuse me, can I go with you?
So when I was 2, I started. So I guess it's a theme in my life, I suppose.
Clearly, you're like, my siblings are doing it. Come on, I can do it. Especially being the youngest one, you're usually like the last one doing something, and you're like, no, don't leave me behind. Come on,
don't leave me behind now. Yeah, so that was that. And then when I transferred to UMBC, I worked, but it was more so like in an academic setting, which is another thing that I want to talk about. Like if you want to go to med school, dental school, PA school, or whatever, if you can find, because I mean, I know that all those, like professions really ask for a lot of things that are usually hard to attain, right? Yeah. So I think if you want to get a job, if you need to get a job, right? I think it'll be better if you can get a job that kind of checks a box on your application, right? So if you need to work fast food, then work fast food, there's nothing wrong with that. You get your money, you do what you got to do.
Right.
but then if you can get a job that also maybe checks leadership on your application, or checks, like
Clinical
community service,
hours.
clinical hours, something. And I know that's something that you also did, right?
Yeah.
So when I was in undergrad, I worked at I was a tutor. I was a physics TA, and I also worked as a writing tutor at my school, right? And I knew that, I was getting some money out of it. And also I could use those like 2 years as like leadership experience, and then like showing my academic prowess or whatever.
Right.
So that's what I did. And like I said before, during my master's, I tried to work, but them grades weren't looking up. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's tough. It's really tough.
It's very tough.
When I first started PA school, like, I can do it now. I was like, listen, I can try to hustle this like few dollars on the side and put my PA career in jeopardy. I can just get it done and pay this money off,
Exactly.
So sometimes you really do gotta make those tough decisions. Especially for us, like like NT loan.
Listen.
Because like when you're talking, I'm like, oh my God, like you remember me be like, I had to take loans. Like, and people are like, what's wrong with that? I'm like, it's my first time, and it's so much money.
It's so much money. I even tried when I was when I first went to PA for my master's. I even had a friend that used to like donate plasma regularly because they would pay you to do that, right? And till this day, he still does that on top of his job, Wow. And it got to a point where I was like, I got plasma. I could donate plasma. You know what I'm saying? But
sitting here making me no money.
Exactly. So I was just like, you know what I mean? But then like, I don't think I could like stand, kind of like being poked every so often, just to make money. I was like, it's all good.
Yeah.
But no, but like you said, those decisions and like those things have to be considered. You really have to like balance out which is more important, right?
Yeah. And I think even if you don't end up doing it, just thinking about something like that, like, okay, I have some level of option, and not every option is for everyone, right?
Exactly.
And who donates plaza, it makes sense for him and he makes that decision. For you, it doesn't. Even for me, I was thinking, like, I was going to swim, like, okay, maybe I can donate these eggs, like, let's think about it.
Listen, food for thought. I mean, I'm still in medical school. I mean, I got some things I can donate, okay?
Listen, these eggs are here, then give me nothing. Every month I'm losing them. Like, I might as well.
That's insane.
But I legit thought about it. I was like, if I donate all of them in the future, I can just sign up. Life is good. But it's serious, like
it is.
Those things really get you thinking. But okay, so we talked about the masters. Now on to the last stage where you are right now. How did you get into where you are in terms of, because right now I understand you're not paying for medical school for 2 years down, right? 2 months ago. How did that process go in you getting where you are without paying for medical school?
Yes, awesome. So, after my master's, I took a gap year, to apply for medical school, right? Like I mentioned before, it takes about a whole year to go through the application cycle and like get invited to interview and then wait for a response. So I took that year. I was working, and, thankfully I had options, right? To say the least, thank to God, I had a few options, a few schools that, were interested in me. And I was so blessed to be in a position where I started, stratifying the schools that I wanted to go to based on the financial package that they had given me, right? That's not something that I had ever dreamed of, you know what I mean? Even when people ask me, oh, what's your dream school? I was never comfortable saying a dream school because I was like, whatever school takes me in, I'm going to go to med school because I just want to be a doctor, but then I was so blessed to have the option to be like, okay, I got into all these schools, but let's talk about what are y'all putting in my pocket type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I think, to be completely honest, I do attribute that to my performance in the master's program and on the MCAT, right? So I was able to do well on the master's program, do relatively well on the MCAT, where, and as a minority, right? As a Black man, as an immigrant at that, like a lot of schools were interested in my my applications to the medical school.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was actually set to go to a school in Philadelphia, PCOM, which is an osteopathic medical school.
Mm-hmm. I remember you talking about that. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was really set in going there, out of all my options. At that point, they had given me the most money.
Mm-hmm.
It was in Philly, which is a good city, because I feel like at heart, I'm a city boy. So, you know what I mean? So I was like, all right.
Oh, I know, Mister. I don't walk. Like, excuse me. It's beneath me.
You're not going to put my business out here. But, I was like, I'm going to be in the city. They gave me money. And, the whole like, and I'm sure you've had you've had an episode about it. And if not, that's something that would be good for your audience. Mm-hmm. Osteopathic versus allopathic medical school.
Yes,
right?
I'm definitely get into that. And that's gonna be like season 2 or 3 of this episode. But yeah, you're definitely gonna come back for sure.
Hey.
Just letting you know right now. We're gonna dive deeper into medical school. But yes, go ahead.
So I'm not gonna spoil it right now. I'm just gonna say that I was set on going to a school in Philly because they had given me the most money. But it wasn't like a full scholarship, right? It was like half tuition, right? So I had to take loans for the other half of tuition and for my living expenses, right? But of course, at that point, that was the best thing we had. So, my family and I were rejoicing, blah, blah, blah. So then, afterwards, the school where I got my master's, Geisinger, they accepted me a little bit later in the cycle. They accepted me. And at that point, I was still set in going to the other school in Philly because I was like, yes, y'all took me in, but where the money at? You know what I'm saying? Where the money at?
For real, yeah.
So a couple of days after my acceptance, the director of admissions at my school emailed me, and she was like, "Hey, Frank, we have this new program that we are kind of like piloting, right? So we want to see, if you'd be interested in applying. This is what it's about. This is a brochure." And to kind of give a quick rundown, the program is called the Abigail Geisinger Scholars Program. Okay. And essentially, it's a program that allows medical students to go to school tuition free and to receive a monthly stipend of $2,000 every month. Even when school is out, winter, summer, it doesn't really matter. You get it every single month on the same day. Okay. It never misses. So you do get your tuition paid for, you do get a stipend. And if you live in Scranton, which is where the school is, $2,000, you can leave off of that and be okay. Because it's not a very populated area. And in return, but it's what we call a service scholarship, right? So in return, you have to practice within the Geisinger system for the amount of time that they pay your school for, right? And you have to practice within certain realms, right? So the premise of the scholarship is that they wanted to replenish the amount of primary care doctors in the area, right? So one thing that they realized is that, with the medical school, student would come to the school, they get trained, they get their MD, and then they just leave and never return. So they wanted to create a system to help retain physicians in the population and to help take care of that population, right? So those are like kind of like a quick rundown of the premises of the scholarship, right? So I was like, I didn't even read all of that. I said, full scholarship to med school and a stipend, I'm applying, okay?
You're like, say less, I'm down.
Say less, okay? So that's exactly what I did. I applied, and it was like such a quick turnaround, like literally within 2 days. I think the May 13th, which is a day before my birthday, I received the email that I had gotten the full scholarship to med school. And I was like, full scholarship and a stipend? I mean, shit. You can't tell me.
Like, God is good, won't he do
God is good. God is good. And, and if you can't tell already by the theme of what I'm saying, I go where the money's at, okay? Like, that's my thing. Like, if I find a way to not be able to pay for something, that's where I'm going to go, as long as it makes sense, right? Within certain parameters, right? So I was like, okay, school for free, check. Geisinger, I already know how it works. I was already there. I did okay. I already have a system, a little bit of a village. My friends are still there. The faculty already know me. So check. So I'm not going to have that kind of like culture shock of like going to a new place and like, you know what I mean? Exactly. And, even before this thing, my heart was already set in primary care, right? I already knew that, I wanted to do something in primary care just because of what originally drove me into medicine, So I was like, y'all are paying me and you want me to do something that I already want to do? Oh, bet. Bet, you know?
Uh-huh.
So that's how that happened. It was just like such, I don't know if I can say a coincidence or a blessing, but the way that everything just worked out was just like, till this day, I'm still speechless, you know, like sometimes I take it for granted, but then like moments like these where I have to talk about the whole process, it really makes me really grateful for the whole thing.
Yeah.
So like you said, you know, I am a year and a half down, not 2 years, a year and a half. I still have half semester of the second year. But you know, so that's where I'm at, you know. So far, you know, the scholarship is interested in people that want to do, you know, primary care, internal medicine, med peds, psychiatry also. So, you know, I still do have options within those fields to find something that I believe is going to be satisfying, right? But yeah, that's the gist of the program, and that's how I'm not paying for medical school.
That's amazing. And that's a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work, a lot of looking and just being like, listen, I don't want to pay for it unless I have to, right?
Exactly.
And I really wanted to have you here because medical school and PA school or nursing school or anything that's like above a bachelor's degree is very hard to find scholarships or full, let alone full, right? So it's amazing that you had that. And even hearing about that for those who are, you know, now getting into that space and thinking about getting into that space, who have the mindset of, listen, I want to get the education. I want to be able to put on my white coat and treat patients, period. Like, I don't care for going to Yale or Harvard, right? If, you know, because I've had situations and I've met with people and heard of people who have a full ride to one school, but decided the school is less than because they want to go to this Ivy League school that they have headset on since they were a child or whatever. And I'm like, so you're going to give up free money to go pay probably double of that just for the name of the school?
Yeah,
that's giving you free money is very crappy. Like, and on it, and even if they're not like top 5 or top 10 or whatever, 9 times out of 10, anything that's above bachelor's degree, and even bachelor's degree, but definitely anything above bachelor's degree, you are doing your own learning. Like, you're getting guidance from the school and the curriculum and things like that. But at the end 100%. Of the day, you're doing your own learning. You're learning, you're deciding how you want to learn and you know, so what you get, what you give.
Exactly.
Unless a world institution you're in, you know.
And just to add a little bit to that, like, I'm a big proponent of, like, yes, I guess like we're not gonna sit here and say that, oh, it doesn't matter someone who went to Harvard. Like, if I'm applying to residency, right, or if you're applying for a job and someone who went to Laverne like you, and then versus someone who went to like Harvard School of Physician Assistant, we're not pretending that you guys are like looked at the same, because you're not, and that's just society we live in, right? But you know, I'm a big advocate of, like, your performance determines what you get out of an institution, right? Like you said, unless this is like ranked like the worst school in the world or in America, and everybody knows that if you go to that school you're doomed, unless it's one of those things, I don't really think that it matters where you go to school, right? If the school has been accredited, right, it means that it's gone through the rigorous standards that the Board of Education believes makes the school what it needs to do, and that it will graduate students that are performing, professional, and competent, right? So if you go to whatever school and you do your best, you're gonna shine, right? If you go to the job market against someone from Harvard, yes, they have a little bit of a leg up because of the legacy of their school, but then a lot of the times it comes down to like your clinical acumen, your skills, your extracurricular, and you can do extracurricular wherever you are, right? And things like that. You can learn clinical skills from wherever you are, right? So I think it's very important what you said, that, you know, some people who pass up free money to go to like procedure schools where they take loans, that's not something I understand. And I would never recommend that to anybody ever.
Yeah. And it's quite, and honestly, for somebody who is just recently being through the job market as a healthcare professional, that is one of the main reasons why folks like our parents, who are, you know, immigrant parents, push us to become things like healthcare professionals because the jobs are there. When are you gonna not need a doctor? When are you gonna not need a nurse? Like, people are getting sick left and right. Like, you know what I mean? I don't care what community you're in. Somebody is sick, you know, and you need people. Like the rate of primary care providers in America is decreasing and decreasing. And so, and case in point, why we have, you know, advanced level providers like PAs and NPs.
Exactly.
So to really not worry about, oh, will I get a job? I was worried about that, especially with my story of like not passing my test until the 4th time. But even if I can get like a lot of job options after like a year of graduating and failing my test 3 times, okay, and going to like a school that nobody even knew had PA school, like you can
right, because your school was also, because I remember when we had that conversation when you were applying and you had gotten in, your school was also going through the accreditation process as you. Weren't you like the first graduating class?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was the first. I mean? One of the first graduates.
Right. I remember that. That.
I'm like to this day, like even the urgent care that I ended up accepting my full-time position to, he was like, "Oh, Laverne has a PA school," and I'm like, "Yep, I get that a lot because it's so new." Like you really do. Like ask any PA school, I've been like, "Oh yeah, we have," you know, and you have to give them a quick education. It's a new program. I mean, I'm the first cohort, but if that, like, think about all the different things that are not shiny about my presentation, you know, and I was getting calls and turning things down and turning interviews down, and also at the end of the day, once all of that gets you through and you get to the interview, it's about your personality. Are you ready?
Hello.
Do they believe that you are going to be a good healthcare professional? Do you present yourself professionally?
Hello.
And, you know what I mean? So your resume can say a whole lot of things, but if you walk in there and they're like, we don't want them representing us as a clinic, they're not gonna hire you. You could be like,
and to that point, like, you know, like that goes back to the whole like where you go to school type of thing, right? Because you could have someone go to school at Harvard, and I think that's a stereotype that sometimes people have of those like higher institutions. Like you can go to school at like a Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Yale, or whatever, and be like an excellent student, but how are you as a medical provider? How are you as a clinician, right? How many times have we seen those gifted students, gifted people that just excel in school, but then you put them in a room with a thermometer to take the temperature of a kid and they freeze up? You know what I mean? Who wants that, right? So like you said, it's about like, yes, we all start off with the baseline of like, okay, we all here have a, you know, a physician assistant degree. We all here have a nursing degree. We all here have a medical degree. That's the baseline. Right. What on top of that do you provide? You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
Exactly. And no, this is, I have a couple other questions, but I think this really sums up what I wanted to get to today. I'm going to leave the other questions for next time you come in.
Okay.
For our dive into medical school and osteopathic and all of those things.
Of course.
Thank you so much for joining, Frank. I really appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed your trip so far.
I have. Thanks to you.
Well. I mean, I'm in Cali, so I know you enjoyed it. You got to see me. You know, that's the best part of the whole trip.
I won't deny that.
But thank you so much. I know you're heading back out tomorrow, so have a safe trip. Let me know when you get there, safe and sound, and say hello to your family for me.
Will do. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And, you know, while I have you here, you know, I think it's important to, you know, give our friends flowers when they deserve them. And you're very deserving of all the flowers that I'm about to throw your way. You know, I think you're doing a great job, you know, with this podcast, trying to shine a light, you know, on like different things that are out there for different people and different venues and avenues that can be taken, right? Because usually when people think medicine, we think doctor, nurse, or dentist, or pharmacist and stuff like that, where there's like 1,000 things in between. There's like an array of things that you can do, right? So I just want to say, you know, thank you for the time that you put into this podcast. Thank you for the energy and like, you know, the education that you give, right? Because, you know, just because we went through somewhat of like a non-traditional path to get where we are, it doesn't mean that, you know, other people after us have to make the same mistakes, right? So if you think about it, you're putting yourself out there as like a mentor. You're putting yourself out there as like, you know, a source of information, a boulevard of health, which again, no pun intended.
I appreciate it.
No, but you know, I just want to say, you know, congrats on that. Congrats on everything that's going on in your life personally that, you know, I'm privy, you know, and blessed to know you personally. And I was telling Anna the other day that you are actually one of my longest friends in the United States. You know what I'm saying? And it's insane. I've known you forever.
As crazy as I am, like, I don't know what's wrong with you.
I think it says something about me. But you know, you're doing a fantastic job. You know, you're an amazing person to know. You know, and I'm very proud of you. You know, you are a full PA. You know, you rose against your challenges. You didn't give up. You know, you had hope. You had faith, and it paid at the end. You know, if I don't tell you enough, I'm proud of you. I love you very much. And, you know, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate that. Don't get weird on me. Don't get emotional.
Make my head as big as yours, and you know that's impossible. You know that's impossible. I know what you're trying to do. But no, I really appreciate that. I love having people like yourself in my circle. Keeps me pushing. And I love it when we can work together like this and try to make the next generation of clueless immigrants try to bring that. And I do mean clueless immigrants. I do mean that.
Not clueless immigrants.
Try to make this journey a little easier. How about that?
Amen to that. Because listen, we went through it, okay?
We did, and that all led to this. So we are thankful for what we have and what we are going to have, and hopefully what we are doing will sort of inspire other people and make their journey a little easier.
That's the goal.
But again, if you're listening to this and you want any guidance about your career choice and anything, feel free to reach out. If anybody I've interviewed, you're like, I want to get to know them and, you know, more about their story and have them mentor me, let me know, and I may get you in touch with them if they're open to it. Other than that, happy holidays, guys. Enjoy
happy holidays.
Delicious, you know, holiday stuff. Again, I won't be back here till maybe February.
And I guess, right. So happy New Year to all your listeners, right?
I know, right? I know. It's been almost a year now. It's so crazy.
So then let me kind of take over your podcast a little bit.
Please go ahead. I told I call him Big Head for a reason. Okay, go ahead. Take over, sir. Take over, Dr. Monney.
So here's the thing. Let's flip the switch a little bit, right? So being that you've been doing this for a long time, and you know we're kind of wrapping up, and you know me being the last guest of the year, not throwing my own flowers, but whatever.
Oh, are you sure you're not?
But just me being the last guest of the year, like what is your takeaway of your journey so far with this podcast, right? And what's one thing that you're looking forward to as we embark on 2022?
So I've honestly, my favorite part about this is getting to meet, and not necessarily me, because half of the people I maybe not have, but some of the people are people like you who are already in my circle. So getting to get into those people that I already know story about how they get to where they are, and there's always something new that I learn.
Right.
And on top of that, getting to meet new people and connecting with them, and that really gets me out of my comfort zone, because I'm social for the folks that I've already built a network with.
Right.
Outside of that, I'm like, listen, no.
That's fair. I can attest to that.
I'm like, no. So it's really gotten me out of my comfort zone, and really the feedback that I've gotten from the listeners, and not necessarily the listeners, but I'm working on that. The people I interview, people who hear the podcast, who tell me in person, or what have you, has really helped me in just keep going. Because when I started this, I really wanted to have. It's been on my heart for quite some time. It's like ever since nursing didn't work out and I went into PA school, that whole journey had led me to a point where I'm like, there's a lot of more opportunities out there than a lot of people know about. And I really want people to shine some light on that.
Of course.
So even just studying this was like the first thing I did after I graduated PA school. Like, okay, I'm finally done with PA school. Let me like do something that I've really just been in my heart.
That's been on my heart, right?
Yeah. So no, I've enjoyed it producing and creating. One thing I look forward to for the new year is sort of like doing better at getting in front of people, because I'm not out there as much as I should be in terms of just people knowing about the podcast. And part of that is just because I've spent this whole year trying to pass my certification.
But amen, you've done it.
So now that that's out of the off my chest, and I can finally live the regular I'm working life, and anything outside of work, whatever time outside of work is my time to do with what I want, then I can better dedicate that time and be like, okay, it's just work. I go and give my 110%, and I come out and I can focus more on my podcast, focus more on my love life, focus more on, creating and IG, whatever I want to do just for fun that's outside of work. Because I feel like I've just spent my whole life in school.
Listen,
and
that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother episode, for a whole nother season, okay?
For real.
Okay, no, so that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So one other thing, right? So like, what would you say to like a young listener that's also, kind of going through, not necessarily, like the healthcare field, right? Because I feel like sometimes, people are like, oh, health, but then there's some other things, you know what I mean? There's like engineering, lawyer, literature, whatever. So what would you say about, what advice would you give, a younger person that's in their specific field about, wanting to create like a podcast or like starting something like that they're not necessarily, because I mean, like, this was also like something that I'm assuming you had to do a lot of trial and error with, and you've done a lot of things, but then I feel like this was like a first in so many kind of like accounts, right? So like, what would you tell like a person that's also trying to take that leap of faith into whatever it may be? It doesn't even need to be a podcast.
I would say get started. Don't spend too much time overthinking it, right? Get started, and likely the first few months will be try and error. They're not, if you look back at the first few months of your production or whatever it is, in like 2 or 3 years after you started, it's gonna look like crap. Like that's just, it doesn't matter what it is you're doing, like whether you're drawing or in anatomy class or whatever. It's like, it's just the first few months at the very least, or just let me figure this out. And there is no way to get past that. You just gotta get through it. You can't avoid the learning steps and the stumbling and the, you know what I mean? And you remember the first time you try to listen to a horn and you're like, I hear the long and the horn, like how am I supposed to
listen till today, okay?
Like, wait, hold on, stop breathing so I can listen to your heart. Like, wait, you want to kill the patient? Wait, no, I don't. Let's think about this again. Or like trying to take blood pressure, you're like pumping the thing, you're like, I'm supposed to hear something? What am I hearing?
Listen, I'm gonna tell you something right now. I am so glad for those automatic cuffs that tell you the blood pressure, because for the life of me, I'll be pumping that thing past 240. Like,
I think I should probably stop before
Cut it out.
But anyway, the point is, like, there is no getting there to where you want to be and where you envision yourself without going through the try and error.
Right.
So
that's really good advice.
Go start it and find your support group. And that's not necessarily like, oh, a whole group or anything, but talk to your family or friends, talk to people who you think will benefit from this, and see what their reactions are. Not necessarily that you do that before you start. Do that before you stop, but also while you're doing it. Like, I always like to tell people what my podcast is about and just see their feedback, and so yeah, just get started. And if you find somebody who's already doing it, like, and that who is doing something similar in a different vein, feel free to reach out to them. I've learned that a lot of time people are open to guiding, and people are more open to mentoring and guiding than we think they are.
100%. And I think with the new age of like social media, it's so much easier to just like reach out,
Yes, and I think you really just gotta get over that fear and that awkwardness of, oh, I'm asking them something. And if you have a personality like I do, I'm very, and my husband always gets on my case with this, because I'm always like, I don't want gonna bother them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, like somebody will offer me something and I will automatically say no because you remember this weekend,
Listen, I ain't gonna put your business out there, but okay.
So it's like you really just you gotta get off your comfort zone.
You have to.
The only way to do it is just one step at a time. Like you're not gonna climb Mount Rush with in 5 minutes. You're gonna do it one step at a time and try not to fall. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. I think that's great advice. So thank you. I think we can all learn something from that, right? Because like I said, it doesn't matter where you are, right? It doesn't matter what you're doing. We all have projects, and we all have little things that we have our hearts set on. But there's always that little nugget that's just do it. You know what I mean? Do it, see what happens, and you go from there.
And what I find is that a lot of time when we are trying to convince ourselves not to do it, we are doing a disservice. And it may sound cliche, it may sound big, like I'm being big or whatever, but whatever it is you're thinking of putting out there and providing as a service or whatever, there's somebody out there who needs it.
Who needs it? Yep.
The longer time you take getting that thing started, you're sort of doing a disservice to those people who need that service, right? So it's not just about you; it's about the people you're trying to serve.
Right, and I think also, not to interrupt, but I think also not everything that you try is gonna work, right? I think we need to also be kind of frank about that. Not everything that you try is gonna work, but how do you find out whether or not it's gonna work? Is by actually doing it. If you never do it, you never know if it's going to be good or bad. There's literally only one way to find out. Is to just jump the gun, go ahead and do it. Yeah.
And you may try 5 different things before you really get to where you want it to be to start with. But if you take forever to start those first 4 things, that's longer time you're going to take to get to the 5th thing. That's really the golden project.
Preach.
I know those failures can be like a heartbreak, but like everything else, and we've heard it over and over again, and it's very true. I'm just putting out that it's very true. It's just easier to say than done, and that is just get up and try again.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, get up and try again. And use your resources. People are out there willing and ready to help you. You just gotta get into the right place.
Amen to that. That was beautiful.
Thank you. You made this longer than I was going to be. But I really enjoyed it.
You knew we were going to be here a while.
Yeah, I had an idea. I had an idea, but I am not mad about it. It's my last episode of the year. It's been a great and amazing time being behind the camera, behind the scene and on the mic and things like that. I really do. I appreciate it, and I really appreciate all my guests who have been here and taken their time to, because I don't pay nobody nothing. I don't even got money. I've been trying to get money this whole time, so I ain't got no money. But no, I really do appreciate people who are passionate about letting people learn about their profession, and that's why they come on here, like yourself, letting people using their journey as an example so people can learn from it. And that really is the best way I can do what I intend to do, right? And I really can do it by myself. So I really do appreciate you. Thank you to everybody else. Frank, I gotta go. we gotta do this.
All right, let's wrap it up.
I know. I feel like it would have been 3 hours if we hadn't just seen each other 3 days ago.
You know it.
But yes. Thank you so much again.
No problem.
Enjoy the rest of your break. I know
Thank you.
I know you will. So enjoy it. And like I said, say hello to people on the East Coast for me.
Will do. Let me know when the episode comes out. Let me know so I can share, so I can listen, so I can cringe at the sound of my voice. Just let me know, okay?
Listen, I've been doing this for a few months now. How do you think I feel, okay? Talk about getting out of your comfort zone. I'm just going to say that. I'm going to just go there.
All right. Thank you so much, Isabel.
All right, my dear. You have a good evening.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. That's all I have for you today. Thank you again for joining me. I appreciate you. Please subscribe, follow, like, comment, and share. And stay blessed. Bye.